I am super excited to introduce my guest. You know him from his work in classic films like Martin Scorsese's GoodFellas, Spike Lee's Jungle Fever, Robert De Niro and Chaz Palminteri's A Bronx Tale, just to name a few. I want to welcome the talented actor, comedian, fellow Brooklynite, Joseph D'Onofrio. Welcome to the show, bro.
It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, listen, I got to tell you, I know it was kind of last minute, and I know it's late right now. You're in Brooklyn, and it's like midnight or something like that, and you're jumping on. So I really appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.
So I created this podcast to inspire young artists to follow their dreams. If a kid like me can come out from Brooklyn at 18 to Hollywood with $200 in my pocket, a one-way ticket, not knowing his soul, and make my dream a reality, then why can't the listener out there? If a kid like you from Brooklyn can be in some of the biggest movies ever made, why can't they? So, it's really about just inspiring them and telling them your story. So I would love to know, how does a kid like you from Brooklyn, first off, where'd you grow up in Brooklyn?
Bensonhurst, Brooklyn.
Bensonhurst, cool. What street, if you don't mind me asking?
Bay 29th and Benson.
All right, did you cruise the L?
Yeah, once in a while, sure.
Back in the day?
Yep.
Nice. Yeah. That was my old stomping ground back. I came out to Hollywood in 84, but like in 82, I was slick. I was a kid,
Oh, wow.
I was running around the neighborhood, running around and, like I ran away from home at 15. I was running the streets. I was, stealing cars, running around, thinking I was half a wise guy. I thought that's the life for me, that whole life.
Yeah.
Until I saw my idol get shot in the head in front of me 5 times, and I realized, maybe this is not the life for me. I gotta get out of Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I was on the lam. I was running. I was hiding because I had some guys that come in looking for me. I hit up in Syracuse, New York, when my sisters were going to college. I came back to Brooklyn. They were still looking for me. I said, I got to get out of here. I was at Aqueduct. I won a couple $100. My friend said, what are you going to do with the money? He said, I'm going to Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I took off from Brooklyn. So how do you, a guy from Brooklyn, from Bensonhurst, get involved in this crazy business?
Well, it started when I was a kid. I was a break dancer. I did a lot of break dancing and popping and locking. And I did some shows, and I met a manager, and we started doing break dance shows. I did a couple of commercials doing break dancing. And then next thing you know, they were like, you want to audition to be in a movie? And I was like, yeah, sure. What am I playing? They're like, oh, just a guy from Brooklyn. Just be yourself. So I was like, okay. So I went up, I did the audition. I ended up booking the part. And then it just, rolled from there. I just kept getting auditions and auditioning, and that's how it just happened.
So it started with breakdancing. Yeah, I remember back when, when breakdancing first started, carrying around the cardboard box, remember? Yeah. Bringing the box, and at school having battles in the gymnasium. That's awesome. Where did you, like, what clubs did you go to? Where did you dance? I mean, I don't know. Did you go out to clubs in Brooklyn? Did you go to Changes or Pastels, or, what was it? Heat Waves, or what were clubs?
Pastels, the Underground.
The Underground, yeah.
The Funhouse. The Roxy big breakdance contest. That's where I got discovered doing my breaking. And we went to Danceteria, clubs like that. Then
that's
the
awesome.
Limelight and, the Tunnel, the Palladium.
So that skill of yours, that special skill, right, opened a door for you in this business. I tell my actors all the time, you want to develop those special skills, because you never know, they're going to be looking, especially in the commercial, like getting into the business. There's a door, there's a theatrical door, and there's a commercial door. And a lot of times for young actors breaking into the business, it's that commercial door that kind of gets them in the door, gets them maybe their SAG card, maybe their Taft-Hartley, because they're just right for the role. I'm looking for a skateboarder, and you're a great skateboarder. I'm looking for a surfer, or a break dancer. So that break dancing opened the door for you to commercials, right?
Yeah, commercials, and then I did some extra work in films, and and then started reading for parts, did a little study in acting, and and that's how it happened.
So okay, let's go back a little bit. So how did you get your SAG card? Was it in a commercial?
Yes, a Pringles commercial. I was breakdancing. I did like a backspin, and it was like, we got the fever for the flavor of a Pringles. And I did a backspin and came out with the can of Pringles in my hand.
Do you have a copy of that? I want to see that.
I think it's on YouTube somewhere.
Is it?
Yeah,
You got to
it's
send
on
me the link.
YouTube.
I got to see that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we send the Pringles commercial breakdancing on YouTube.
Yeah, I was looking.
1984.
I was looking for it. I was trying because I heard about the Pringles commercial, so I was looking to find it. And it was crazy because I found all kinds of stuff. I saw Vin Diesel had a video on how to break dance, like when he was younger. There was, and then I saw what's his name? Gallo, Vincent Gallo. He was, on one of those dance videos.
Well, it was
there's all
1984. If you put in 1984, I think it pops up. Well, I can send it to you. I'm sure I got it somewhere.
I got to see that. That's awesome. So okay. So now you break into the business. You got your SAG card, through your Pringles commercial, and then you have a commercial. How'd you get your commercial agent? They just saw you dancing.
What happened was there was a manager that lived in the neighborhood. I don't know if you know of Marianne Leone, terrific talent.
No.
She lived on Bath Avenue and Bay 40 something street.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so my mom seen an article, like a thing in show business for managers, and Marianne was in there. So I went up to Marianne's office, and she looked at me. She said, "Oh wow, he's so cute." And my mother was like, "Do a head spin," and I did like a head spin in her office, like right on the rug. And she was like, "I'm gonna start sending you out for commercials." I was like, "Okay." And then, I did maybe 5, 6 commercials, it was fun. We did a pony commercial, we did a ragu commercial, we did like a Mead notebook commercial. It was fun.
Nice. So you were getting paid.
Yeah, we're getting paid too, yeah.
And you were young, so that money went into a Coogan account, right? I mean, you didn't get to play with that money, did you?
No, my mother let me have some money, but she put some away for me.
That's good.
Like if I wanted to buy something like clothes and stuff like that, I was allowed to.
Nice. So what was it like? I mean, growing up in the neighborhood, I know, for me, like when I told everybody I want to be an actor, they're like, yeah, you're going to be an actor. You're going to be a movie star. They used to call me, they used to see me in the street and go, yo, Hollywood, from the corner, because I told everybody I wanted to be an actor. I mean, I got bit by the bug when I was 11. They were filming a movie in my neighborhood, Nunzio, with David Proval. Okay. And they were looking for kids, street kids to play stickball and, kids just background. And I was like, hey, what's going on over here? And they were making a movie. And I ran up to Morgana King, who played Marlon Brando's wife in The Godfather. And she was the lead, the mother in this thing. And I ran up to her and I said, what's going on here? What are you doing? She said, we're making a movie. I said, well, how do you get in a movie? I want to be in a movie. So, she showed me a picture and a resume. I ran home, took a Polaroid picture, wrote some shit down on a piece of loose leaf paper, ran down the street, said, here's my picture and resume. The director said, go home, kid. We're going to stick you in the movie. So I ran home. Mom, they're going to stick me in the movie. She goes, you stay in the house. You don't know what kind of movie that I ran down the street. I go, listen, my mother doesn't believe you. You got to tell her. You got to, I dragged him to the house. He said, we're Universal Pictures. We're going to pay your son. My mother's going to pay him? Hey, take him. So I was just background, right? So I show up to the set and there's this kid. His name is Glenn Scarpelli. He was on like One Day at a Time or whatever. He had a speaking role in the film, right? So he wasn't there the day that I was there, and I looked just like him. So everybody thought I was him. Oh, wow. So they called me Glenn. They gave me a chair. They powdered my nose. They gave me craft service. So that's when I got bit by the bug, right? And then a year later, they're filming Saturday Night Fever like 5 blocks away from me. So, the scene where they crash into the Barracuda Club and they get into a fight in the car. Yeah, sure. So I stayed up to like 4 a.m. watching them film, this scene with a stunt and the whole thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is when, John Travolta, Vinnie Barbarino, it comes out of his trailer and there's like thousands of girls screaming, going mad, fainting. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. But everybody I told my dream to, they laughed at me. They say, yeah. So nobody believed in me. So it seems to me like you had some people that believed in you, right? Your mom was looking out for you, trying to get you some representation.
Yeah, basically my mom, I was just breakdancing. I remember I wanted to be in the contest, and my mom, he was supposed to like fill out a paper to get to the contest. And like, she waited till like the last minute because I kept bothering her to put me in the contest. But then finally I got in it. But then once I got the manager, basically the manager used to just call me, get me an audition, and I would go up and then, audition, stuff like that. I never really I don't know. I never really wanted to be an actor or thought about like acting, to be honest with you. It just was like something that happened. It was weird. It was like growing up. And I would just like, getting older, like growing up in the neighborhood, going out, hanging out, being a regular person, kid. And then like having my manager call me up to do an audition. And it was just like, I'd read the paper, I'd do the sides, I'd go up and I'd do it. It was like, I never thought about, I was never really into acting or never into movies or like directors. I really didn't know too many. It was kind of weird. But, after I started doing it a while, after a couple of years, and I said to myself, I was like, wow, I'm an actor. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Maybe I should, start taking this seriously and, doing some technique and learning things and, learning from other actors and watching and learning a lot of things. And then, now finally, I feel like I'm, almost where I need to be.
Well, this craft, you never, it's not like you get it. Oh yeah, I know everything about acting. It's, you learn every day. I mean, I've been doing this shit for 40 something years and I learn something new every day. I mean, I have my own school. This is not a virtual background. This is a real school,
yeah,
and, I work with actors every day, but I learn every day, about more about this craft of acting, so that's the beauty.
I love learning. And it's also, you're learning when you're working with different actors too, because different actors have different techniques and different ways to work. And,
Well, let's talk about that because you had a fucking masterclass, man. I mean, seriously, I mean, think about it. I mean, like, listen, I grew up, I'm a De Niro fan, I mean, I'm a De Niro, Pacino, Brando. Those are my guys growing up, that's that's who, I wanted to be,
Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, I know what, like your first film was like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right?
Yeah.
So you get a small part in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is a big movie. I mean, at the time it was a huge movie, right? It's not like you were, this is a monster movie that you're in. And then your second film is
GoodFellas.
GoodFellas. So I mean, you hit the acting lotto, man.
Yeah,
I mean, to get cast as, young Joe Pesci, young Tommy in GoodFellas. Tell me about that experience. I mean, like, how did you get that part? What was the auditioning process? How did that all come about?
Basically what happened was I got a phone call from my manager and she said, you have an audition for the show, the movie Wise Guy, because it was called Wise Guy.
Oh yeah, Nicholas Pileggi.
Yeah, it was based on the book. So I had to go see Ellen Lewis, who was casting it at the time, up at her office on 57th Street. So I went up, they took a Polaroid picture of me, and then that was it. And then, I don't know, like 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. They're like, oh, they want to see you at Warner Brothers at Rockefeller Center to meet with Marty Scorsese. And I was like, who's Marty Scorsese? Oh, the guy directing the movie. I was like, oh, okay, sounds good. Okay, no problem. What time? So I was like, okay. So I went up there and I really didn't, like back then, I really didn't do research or nothing. I was just like, oh, whatever. I was like 19 at the time or something like that, 19 or 20. So I went up, I met with him. I was like, hey, how you doing? He's like, how you doing? And he's like, he wanted me to read with 3 different kids. And then I read with 3 different kids, a scene, one scene. And then he was like, oh, who do you think was the best? And I was like, oh, I think this guy was good. We just had a little talk or whatever. And then, I don't know, like 2 weeks later, they were like, they want to book you on the Goodfellas, on Wise Guy, but they changed the name to Goodfellas now. And then we booked it, and then we went, and that's what happened. That's how we got the part.
Wow. So what was the audition scene? Which one? Was it a scene from the movie?
Yeah, it was the scene, I think, when we were by the truck. How you doing? What's going on? Sounds like me and De Niro. Like, I think he played De Niro. I played young Tommy. And
when he's introducing you guys.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a bad start. I mean, Ellen Lewis, she's, Marty's casting director, not a bad casting director to meet, And I think the beauty is that, you didn't know. So there was no nerves, like, let's say if you were going to go meet with Martin Scorsese now and you didn't know him, that adrenaline would be pumping through your veins. But, as a kid, you don't know anything, it's like, well, whatever, I'm here, I'll do whatever, what do you want me to do?
That's exactly how it was. That's exactly what happened. And I think that's why they liked me. And I know Marty, I heard throughout the years, he likes to hire people that, close to the parts, close to the real people. So I guess That's what it was.
Yeah. Well, listen, that was your star power. I tell, actors all the time, what's your castability? You're a product. You're selling a product to Hollywood. You got to know what you're selling, right? It's like when I came out to Hollywood, when I first get out of here, people say, you got to lose that Brooklyn accent of yours, or you got to do this, or, and I was like, fuck that. I said, that's what makes me me. That's what makes me different from everybody else. I'm not going to change who I am, because I knew what I was selling. I was selling a street kid from Brooklyn.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. I give you a perfect example. I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, back in the early 80s, 87, I had a TV series and I played like a New York character. I played a character named the Booch, with a leather jacket, and I played a Cougine. I had the gold chain. I had the fucking perfect hair, the whole thing. But, when I auditioned for that TV series, they were looking for a surfer dude from Venice Beach. Wow. That's how they described the character. But I read that thing and I was like, surfer dude from Venice Beach. I was like, nah. I saw him like the Fonz. I grew up watching Happy Days, Henry Winkler, the leather jacket. He drove the motorcycle. He was cool. He snapped his fingers. The girls came running. So I saw him like the Fonz, right? And then I was like, I saw him like Vinnie Barbarino, from Welcome Back, Kotter. So what I did is I took a little Vinnie Barbarino, I took a little Fonzie, I put them together, and that's the guy I brought into the room. And I said, you like that? And they went, yummy, yummy. And they gave me the part. They rewrote it. So the show takes place in Venice, but the kid's got a Brooklyn accent. Yeah. So it was really popular back in Brooklyn because, all the Brooklyn people could relate to the character. They were seeing themselves on TV. And it's a guy, that I created the guy. That was a guy that, the guy from the neighborhood,
that's happened to me. That's actually happened to me before, once or twice too. A couple of shows. The show Are We There Yet? I played Staten Island Mike, but in the beginning, like you said, they were looking for a Rob Schneider type. Yeah. And I went in because Todd Taylor was a friend of mine. He was the casting it. He said, Joe, just come in. I want you to do this role. I was like, okay. So then they called my agent and they were like, oh, we love Joe, but the show shot in Seattle. And I told my agent, I was like, what, there's nobody from New York in Seattle? He's like, okay, I'm going to call them back and tell them that. So he called them back. He's like, there's people from New York that live in Seattle. And they were like, you know what? We're going to book them. And they just made my name Staten Island Mike instead of Mike.
That's awesome.
Something like you. Same thing, man. It's like you said, sometimes you got to use your own traits, to put yourself into the role. And, like that's what I do. Every role, I try to bring a little of myself to it. You know what I mean? Just in a different variation of it. Yeah,
but in the beginning, your castability is you were, you got a great face, you're a character, you're perfect. I mean, you're like that guy, You ever feel, I know for me, when I came out, I was typecast. I was playing all the, those roles, for a long time. I played, on Who's the Boss. I played the dumb Italian kind of, character, or, I played the, on Boys Will Be Boy, I played the, the Cougine, these characters. And then they started trying to typecast me and going, they would only bring me in on those roles. And then I'd hear about a project and I'm going, wait, I mean, this roles, I want to audition for this. But they were like, no, he's that guy.
Yeah.
Do you ever deal with that?
Oh yeah, that's kind of hard. Sometimes that happens. Certain people only want to see me for certain things. That's why I try to do a lot of independent films where I could go against my role and my character. So if I see an independent film where they're doing, and there's a character that I think that's different from the Cougine or the gangster or the Italian guy, I'll try to take it on and to prove myself. Because sometimes, a lot of times when you're playing those roles all the time, they think that's all you could do, and they think that's all that people see you as. So sometimes it's hard to get, the bigger casting people to trust you in those roles. But thank God there's a lot of roles for Cougines and gangsters and
listen,
Italian guys. But I'm lucky because I do comedy and drama. So it's like I could do a drama and then do a comedy and
love that.
Switch it up. But yeah, it's hard. It's a hard thing. I try not to think about it too much because I try not to get too much stressed out about it. I just get the auditions and do the best I could, and and that's all I could do.
Yeah. So I'm listen. Some people say about type, at least you're a type, you can work, You know, you work. I mean, listen, I know guys in this business that work all the time because, you know, I mean, I had Emilio Rivera on my podcast, you know, and he plays the cholo with the goatee and the whole thing, you know, he plays all the bad guys, but you know what? He's working all the time. He's laughing all the way to the bank. He's got, you know, he's in every big movie and every, you know, when they're looking for that role, that's the guy they go to.
Exactly.
You know, I know other guys that they're the heavyset guy, you know, they're looking for a heavyset guy, they go with that guy.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, listen, as long as you're in this business, you know, it's a tough business. So if that's what's going to get you in the door, great. And then, you know, you got to fight to get out of that box. I mean, I know for me, there was a role I played a son of a mafia boss on NYPD Blue, who was a psychopath, who was gay, who killed his own brother and whack a bunch of other people, whatever. And I guest starred on a show. And then I found out they were casting another episode, and it was a Puerto Rican ex-con from Rikers Island who's suicidal, and I was like, this role is great. I wanted to get in on it. And they kept saying, no, we know Billy Gallo, we know. And so what I did is I filmed myself, I put myself on tape. I got it to casting. And when they saw that tape, they brought me in the door, and then I got in the door and I booked that part. And
good. That's what you got to do.
Sometimes. You know, you got to show them, that I can do other, you know, and the business has changed. I mean, now with self-tapes, you can do that. Yeah. You know,
I've done things like that before where like I went in for one role, but I wanted another role. And then when I got in there, they were like, oh, how you doing? And I'd be like, I'm doing good, but I like to read for the other role. Cause you know, I think I'm a little better for the other role. And then they would let me read, and same thing like you, I booked it. I did that a couple of times where, you know, once you're in that room,
you know, it's your time.
It's your time. So if if you handle it in a respectful way, you know, like I wasn't just like, let me read the role. I'd be like, you know, I like the role you gave me to read, but I would appreciate it if you let me read the other role too. You know, since I'm reading this one, I'd really appreciate it. And, you know, if you say it in a nice way, people are like, all right, yeah. And then they're like, oh, we're glad you did the role. And then they give it to you.
Yeah. So you really had an amazing on-the-job training, right? Yeah. I mean, you can't get better. Yeah. I mean, you've literally worked with some of the greatest directors in film, you know, and you work with the Scorseses, you work with the Harold Ramis, you work with Spike Lee. I mean, you work with some amazing directors. So what is the biggest takeaway, especially for you as a young actor, you know, starting out, you know, kind of green, you know, you don't really know a lot about the craft of acting, you know, working with these directors, what did they impart to you? What wisdom, what knowledge did you get from working with them?
A lot of them gave me different things, like just watching them work and watching how giving they were as actors, and learning, like, you know, like when you're doing, the other guy's doing a close up to, you know, say your lines and then stop, let them say their line, give them a beat, and then say your line, and, you know, give them the facial reactions, and, you know, just be a giving actor when I'm in a scene with somebody. And I also learned, like, I remember working with De Niro, as a matter of fact. I was doing a scene and I like punched this guy, and I was like, I think I should say something. And he's like, Joe, don't say nothing, just do it.
That's awesome.
I looked at him, I was like, really? He said, yeah. And I was like, wow.
Is that when you punched the kid on the bike?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Yeah, because you didn't indicate anything. You just got up and did it.
Yeah, and he had told me, I would never forget. And I was like, you know, I was green, like you said. I mean, I really didn't know too much about acting or technique or anything. I just knew, you know, how to be a tough guy from Brooklyn, you know, emulating friends that I grew up with and people I knew. So when I told him that, and he was like, no, just don't say anything. And he's like, trust me. I was like, okay. And then after that, it's like whenever I'm doing something, I always have that in the back of my head. And, you know, and just, you know, just listening to them, you know, like Spike Lee, like, you know, doing my first close-up I ever did was on Jungle Fever. You know, I was so nervous doing it. And, you know, he could tell I was nervous, and he was just like, relax, you know, you just have fun. Just have fun. You're having fun. Enjoy yourself. And I looked at him and I was like, you know what? You're right. And, you know, you got to have fun. You got to do it and have fun doing it. And, you know, and be open and willing and, you know, all that good stuff, you know, and I like to have fun. When I'm working, I want to have fun. Anything I do, I want to have fun. You know what I mean? And that's just the way I like to do it.
That's great advice. I mean, you know, one, being relaxed, and two, having fun, because when you're having fun, guess what? I'm having fun watching you. You know, if you're in your head, you're dead. You know, if you're in your heart, you're smart. If you're in play mode and it's like Halloween, you got the wardrobe on, the makeup and the thing, and it's not even you, the actor, it's the character in the given circumstance, and you're in play mode, you know, that's a different vibration than if the actor's coming in their head going, oh, I hope I don't forget my lines. I hope they like me. I hope, you know, it's not about that. I mean, I know for me, you know, when I came out, you know, to Hollywood, I had big fucking, you know, I didn't give, you know, I think growing up in Brooklyn, you know, gives you something that, you know, an edge on the other, you know, it's like, listen, if I could survive the streets of Brooklyn, Hollywood was no big deal, you know?
Yeah, but it's two different things basically, because growing up in Brooklyn, you need an ego and an image, and you got to be a tough guy, or else, you know, you'll get taken advantage of. But, you know, in the entertainment business, it's the total opposite.
Yeah.
You got to be, you know, a gentleman, nice, and, you know when to keep your mouth shut. That's another thing I learned from a lot of actors. Like, you know, sometimes you're on set, you know, you want to say something, sometimes something's going on you don't like. To me, I just keep my mouth shut. I mean, if it's not my job, like if I'm not the director, I'm not the producer, I'm not this, I'm not that, keep my mouth shut and just do my job, go back to my trailer, do my thing, and then go back anybody else's thing. You know, things go wrong all the time, but if they do, I try to handle it like easy going, you know, and in a nice way. But in Brooklyn, if things don't go your way, hey, get over here. I'll beat the hell out of you. You're giving somebody a beating. So it's the total opposite. And it took time. It took time to adjust.
Yeah, well, me too. You know, I totally get that. I mean, what I'm talking is like when I remember when I first came out to Hollywood and I show up to, I heard about these things called, you know, breakdowns, and, you know, they drop them off on the steps of the agent's office, and it had all the roles. Well, I was like, I'd steal that and sit in Denny's and go through and pick, you know, then I go to the studio and the gate, you know, and the Warner Brothers and the guys the security guard to go, sorry, kid, you can't come in. And I'd be like, oh yeah. I'd walk around the corner, I'd climb the fence, jump the ladder, I'd go to casting, knock on a door, you know? So I was like, those, you know, nothing was going to stop me from getting what I wanted, you know, not some security guard, you know, I was climbing fences my whole life. But you're so right, because, you know, you don't last in this business. You don't have 130 something IMDb credits if you're not a good guy, you know, a professional actor, and have a good reputation in this business.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about relationships and reputation. And I'm sure that well, listen, let's go back a little bit. You did De Niro GoodFellas, but you worked with De Niro on Night in the City, Analyze That, a Bronx Tale. I mean, you've worked with him on what, 4 projects?
Yeah.
So if you didn't deliver on the first one, you would never work with him again on those other projects, you know? So whatever you did, he liked you and he kept bringing you back.
Yeah.
And in this business, it's all about relationships. I mean, you look at Scorsese, he uses the same actors all the time. Yeah. You know, look at him and De Niro, look at all the films they did together. You know, you get comfortable. You have you know that you're going to deliver. If I bring you on set, I don't have to hold your hand. I know you're going to come and you're going to play full out, and you're going to, you know, be prepared, and you're going to be professional, and you're likable, and I want to hang out with you. And, you know, you got to be likable in this business. If you're not, I mean, I've worked with a lot of asshole actors in this business that, you know, they're no longer working in this business. You know, they had a, you know, they worked for a little bit, and now, you know, their reputation got out there, and we're going to war. We're going to be making a film. You know, I got to know that you got my back in the trenches, you know, that we're going to go, you know, we're going to do this together, you know, so it's teamwork.
It's so nice. It's so nice when you work with people. It's like the show I just finished, like the makeup lady was like, listen, I just want to let you know, people have been talking about you. And I was like, really? What were they talking about? It's like, oh, how nice you are, and how you bring such a positive energy to the set, and how, you know, you come on time all the time. You always know your lines, you know, your blocking, you know, your lighting, you know, you come shaved to the set. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And that made me feel so good. Yeah. Because, you know, it's important. It's important to me to, you know, show up, like you said, show up and know your lines, and, you know, get it done. Get it done like on the first, second take. Boom, it's done. It's in the can.
Yeah. Listen, time's money. When you know, I mean, I've been on the other side as a producer, and I've had, you know, I shot a film in New York, and I had one of my lead actors was a problem actor. He'd show up unshaven. He'd take off his wardrobe. He didn't hang it up, you know, so we couldn't find his wardrobe. He was late to the set. I mean, he cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars because I got 150 technicians on payroll. I can't shoot anything till my lead actor gets here. And then he show up, and, you know, he had an ad, you know, so it's really important that, you know, you have that reputation in this business that you're a good guy. I like
I
this
like to do
guy.
that with my wardrobe. When I'm done for the day,
Hang
I
it
take my
up.
wardrobe, I hang it up, I put it
Exactly.
back the way I found it.
Yeah, so the
I don't-
wardrobe
I
lady,
don't-
all
I
she
don't
has to
leave it
do is
all over.
come, pick it
Yeah.
up and bring it in. And, you know, people like that, you know,
Yeah.
makeup people like it that you come in, you don't have to go shave and you came in prepared. You came
Yeah.
shaved. You came, you know, when you show up to set, go through the works, go through hair, makeup, wardrobe, be picture ready. Go to that first AD and say, I'm ready. I'm picture ready. Whenever you need me, I'll be right here waiting by, you know. That's what a professional actor does. You don't be the guy eating, smoking cigarettes, donuts over there by craft services, unshaven, you know, because, you know, we're on a schedule. I need you on set. I don't want to have to wait a half hour so you to go through the works.
Exactly.
You know, that's what a professional actor does. So here you are, you do GoodFellas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge film. I mean, listen, I'm, you know, God rest his soul, Ray Liotta, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I love Ray. I mean, Ray was like an older brother. When I came out to Hollywood, we did a TV series back in 1985 with Eli Wallach and Michael Madsen. Andrew Dice Clay was my brother in it.
Oh, that's
You know,
great.
so we became friends. And, you know, I didn't have a car. He had a car. He was oldest. He used to drive me to my auditions, you know,
Cool.
run lines with me, you know, so, you know, it's really sad, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, Mr. Sorvino, and I mean, it's crazy how many some legendary guys we've been losing lately.
Yeah.
You know, did you get an opportunity to work with Ray or Paul?
I never worked with Ray before. I met him once or twice. Paul, I don't think I ever did any scenes with Paul, but I worked on a couple of movies with him and knew him.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, the movie called The Birthday Cake that we did, like, I don't know, right after the pandemic, he had a little scene in it. I had a couple of little scenes. I seen him on the set of that. Such a shame, you know.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. I
Super
don't know. I think
talented.
God's making a movie or something up there.
He's casting.
Casting taking up over there.
Yeah, listen, he pulled Jimmy Kahn for a part too.
I hope they
You know.
don't need like a Joe Pesci lookalike. Young Joe Pesci.
So now, you know, here comes along another classic film, A Bronx Tale.
Yeah.
How does that come into your universe?
Well, basically what happened with that is I got a call from my manager again, and she said, Robert De Niro's people called. They want you to come up and do a reading of a play, a script of a play of a movie. It's like, okay, cool, sounds good. So like, all right, they gave me the address. I had to go, so I went up. There was that Tribeca, and I got up, and we did the reading for the Bronx Tale. And, you know, everybody was there. I mean, Penny Marshall, Ron Howard, everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
when I think about it, everybody, there was an audience listening to us. And then after
Wow.
we finished, I mean, De Niro was like, good job. I was like, oh, thank you. And then, I don't know, a couple of months later, because we had went on strike, the union went on strike right after
Yeah.
that. So then after the strike was over, they called me up and it was like, De Niro's office called. They want to have a meeting with you. I was like, all right, sure. So I went up and said, oh, listen, you know, we're thinking we're going to do this movie and, you know, thinking of having you play the role of Slick. And I was like, that sounds great. Sounds good. And then, you know, I kept coming up and meeting with different guys. Like they put all the guys around me. Like one day, you know, there was four of us. So every day I would come, there'd be like 5 guys. Then the next day it'd be one guy was the same and then 4 were different. And then the next day it was like 3 were the same, 3 were different. And then it kept going like that until they were like, all right, these are the guys.
Yeah.
And then they said, all right, we're going to book you. Then they booked me after that. And then, you know, and then we did the movie. So I actually had the part. Like, I don't think anybody even auditioned for my character. Bob just wanted me for that role because he thought I was so perfect for it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know, it's about relationships, you know.
Yeah.
Bob liked what you did and he, you know, he remembered you and he liked you and he said, yeah, let's bring him back.
Yeah, that's
That's awesome. So what was it like working with Bobby?
Oh, it was great. It was like, you know, and one of the amazing parts of my life, being directed by him, and the first time him directing and just learning from him.
Yeah, that was his first film, to
Yeah, it
direct.
was the first film he ever directed. So it was an honor to be directed by him, and just talking with him, and sitting in his trailer and just talking about life, and just giving me advice about things, and just telling me about things, and like a fatherly figure in a way. And
That's
just
awesome.
showing me, like, different techniques. And like I said, with the not saying anything in that scene. And basically he let me just do whatever I wanted to when I was acting. He'd be like, just go with it. If just, the lines are there. He goes, but just go with it. If you feel like saying something, say it. And then I would just, and it was great. It was just like improv, and even like when we did analyze that together, like the whole scene we just improv the whole scene. And it was like, that was an amazing thing to like improv with Robert De Niro, and just like
Mm,
boom,
yeah.
boom, boom, man.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, on the rooftop when they're hanging you off the roof, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it was funny because I was going up the stairs and I told Howard Ramis, I was like, listen, when Bob tells me who you're working for, I want to say your mother. And Howard Ramis started laughing. And he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He goes, just don't tell him. Just do it.
Love it.
So I was like, okay. And then we did the whole scene. And then afterwards, somebody told me, so, Howard Ramis never lets anybody improv. And I was like, really? I was like, well, I didn't know that. But, I guess he let us do it. So.
Yeah. I got a story for you. I got a De Niro story. So like I said, he's my idol, I mean, I grew up, Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, I mean, I just,
Man.
that he's that's one of the reasons when I started really wanting to be an actor, and started studying at the Actor Studio in New York and Lee Strasberg, and that was my guy. So here I am in Hollywood, and I do a movie directed by Gary Marshall called Pretty Woman, right?
Yeah.
So I do that movie, and then I hear Penny Marshall, his sister Laverne, is doing a movie called Awakenings with Robert De Niro, and there's a role in it, right? So I guess Gary told Penny about me or whatever. Long story short, I'm in Palm Springs, hanging out, and I get a call from my agent. They go, they want to screen test you with Robert De Niro for this movie Awakenings, right?
Oh,
and it's
wow.
this cab driver who picks him up. He's sick. I don't know if you saw Awakenings. He's sick, and he's so he's on these meds, and he's off the meds, and he's getting sick again. So there's a cab driver scene with a cab driver that takes him, tells him, this is a bad neighborhood. Come on, let me get you out of here, whatever. So there's a scene. So long story short, I'm in Palm Springs. I get the call. I'm like, I jump in the car to go back to Hollywood. I want to get ready for this. I'm at De Niro, right? So I go to Warner Brothers. It's a Sunday, right? It's like the studio's freaking closed, right? And it's just, I come in and, on the lot, and, the New York City fake streets or whatever, and I'm waiting to go in, and I get into the room, and I'm thinking I'm going to see Jake LaMotta. I'm going to see Travis Bickle. I get Leonard. I get this guy, he's very like shy and like quiet. And I'm like, what the fuck, So we're doing a scene, right? And Penny Marshall's there. She's directing, and there's a guy running camera, right? And I'll tell you this magical moment that De Niro gave me in the audition. So the scene is he's sitting at a park bench, and he's sick, and I'm trying to, come on, let me get you out of here, Leonard, and I go to pick him up, right, in the scene, and he lays there like dead weight, and he makes me struggle to pick him up, like really struggle. And in that moment, everything was real, So I take De Niro and I put him over my shoulder, and I go, come on, baby, I'm going to get you home. And I'm playing this, and Penny Marshall doesn't yell cut. So I start improvising and, tell him I'm going to get you. And then finally Penny yells cut, and I put De Niro down very gingerly. And he looks at me and goes, that was good. That was good. And I was like,
wow.
De Niro just told me, so it was amazing. I mean, I literally I floated out of, unfortunately,
he's such a nice person.
He was such a giving actor. He was such a nice guy. So cut to, I'm in New York City, and I'm walking around, and I see they're shooting a film in New York, and I see the trailers and everything, right? So I go, I asked one of the guys, one of the guys working on the thing, I go, what are you guys shooting over here? He goes, oh, Night in the City. I go, who's in it? He says, Robert De Niro and Jessica Lange. I went, where's Bobby's trailer? So I go, I find his trailer, I bang on the door, bum, bum, bum. And I tell, so some guy comes out, and I said, I says, tell Bobby it's Billy Gallo, we just did a screen test, So the guy says, well, he's getting ready to do a scene right now. He says, but he said, why don't you come by to Tribeca tomorrow, because he's going to be directing a film. He'd like to, meet you over there.
All right.
I never went. I had a
Uh,
plane ticket going back to California. I was doing a TV show, and a big regret because
probably
when
for
I
the
was,
Bronx Tale.
yeah, it was Bronx Tale,
Right,
man.
the city was right
Yeah,
before the Bronx Tale.
yeah. So that was a big regret that I never went to that meeting.
Yeah.
You
He
got any of
actually got
those?
me the part. He got me that part in The Night in the City. I didn't even audition for it. I just had got a
Wow.
call. Yeah, Erwin Winkler was directing that, I remember. And they were just like, oh, you just booked the part in Night in the City. I was like, yes, I never read for anything. Like, oh, they just offered you the part. I was like, oh. And then he was there. So I was like, wow,
Once
such
again,
a nice person.
it's about relationships,
Yeah.
What was it like working with Chaz?
Oh, Chaz is amazing. Such a nice person. I actually just did a series with him called Gravesend, when
Okay.
he's one of the stars. We didn't
Oh,
have any
yeah.
scenes together, but we hung out a couple of days and I went to see his show. The
Oh, you
one-man
saw Bronx
show.
Tale, this one-man show?
Great.
Oh man, I'm jealous.
It's such an amazing show, and he is such an amazing talent. And I wish I could work with him every day. He's that good, where
Yeah.
it's just like boom, 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 boom. It's like not even working. It's just like going to the set and having fun.
That's amazing. So yeah, Gravesend, I'm loving it. I'm a Brooklyn guy from the '80s, so
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
It's
loving it.
it's your, cruising the L.
Yeah,
going
it's
to
my old
Pascal,
neighborhood, freaking the Capizios and the, that's definitely that was my time. So I'm looking forward to season 2. He's got a great cast. I mean, I know Tony Luke's a great friend of mine, Lou Lombardi, Leo Rossi, he's got a great Amon DeSante.
Clay, William Forsythe, Fran
William,
Drescher,
William's a good friend of mine.
William DeMeo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait. That's awesome. So you're playing, what are you playing at again? You play
Johnny Mad Dog Mangano.
Mad Dog. That's a good name.
Yeah, it's fun.
But you're having some fun with that role?
Yeah, oh yeah, we had a lot of fun on it, man. I can't wait for people to see it. It's a great show and a great story. And and it's really about Gravesend back in your era and in my era, so it should be fun.
Yeah. So you and William have worked together a lot, right?
Yeah. We did the Wannabes in 2000, and then we did Back in the Day a couple of years ago. And now we did Gravesend, and we did a couple of short movies. We grew up together, me and William. So, I know William from the neighborhood. So we always stayed close and always talked to each other and always helped each other out. Like, if I knew an audition, I always told him about it, or he'd tell me. And, if I'm ever doing anything, I always try to throw his name out there, and he tries to throw my name out. We help each other. He's a good actor and a good friend.
That's awesome. I love when I see guys from the neighborhood like making moves in Hollywood,
Yeah.
I mean, rubbing shoulders with, when I see, him and John Travolta, like on 18th Avenue, or, just, him with Amon DeSante, or, Sylvester Stallone, I think it's freaking awesome, because I know that they were once kid like me from Brooklyn that, saw Rocky and dreamed of, I know for me, look, I grew up, Rocky inspired the hell out of me, as a kid, like I was getting bullied when I was in Catholic school, and I saw Rocky, I started working out, I started hitting the bag, I recreated myself after Rocky, but, I remember when I came out to Hollywood and I was doing Who's the Boss with Tony Danza, and, we'd do our table reading, it was a, half-hour sitcom, so we do our table reading, and then we go play golf. And here I am playing golf, and, who shows up? Sylvester Stallone. So here I am on the green. I'm on the putting green. I look to my left, there's Tony Bantha. To my right is Rocky. And I'm like, how the fuck did I get here?
Yeah.
How I grew up watching Taxi with Tony Danza. I was inspired because he's a guy with a Brooklyn accent on TV. I was like, if this guy can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
I remember watching Who's the Boss back when it first came out, going, oh man, this guy's got another show. And then to come out to Hollywood and then become a series regular, recurring character on the show. It's like, how does that happen? I truly believe it's the power of manifestation, visualization, seeing yourself doing it. You
got to put in the work too.
Oh yeah. You got to take massive action. You got to go, listen, you want to take the island, you got to burn the boat, right? When I came out to Hollywood, there was no boat back. There was no plane ticket back. Failure is not an option. It's like, I'm not going back.
I give you a lot of credit, man. I look up to you for doing that, man. That's cool. That's really nice. I like that.
Well, thank you, brother.
Yeah.
So, let's talk, this business has changed drastically from when you got into the business. Back in the day, you'd walk into a room and,
Yeah.
audition, and, because of the pandemic, now it's self-tape auditions, and, it's a different thing, than growing, you have a great energy, you're a character, you come into the room, people like you, people want to be, it's a lot different when you're not walking into a room and you got to
Yeah.
put yourself on tape. So how do you feel about self-tapes?
Self-tapes, I mean, I think they're okay. I mean, I'd rather be in the room meeting people and, having a directors and a producers meeting. So like you said, you could, talk to them and have a personality with them, but self-tapes, I just try to do it my best, and that's all I could do. I try to give a little of myself in like the slate, or like in the scene itself. You know what I mean? I try to put a little personality in there.
Yeah.
You got to have these little tricks, I guess, when you do self-tapes.
Yeah, I mean, what I tell my actors all the time is don't leave anything to their imagination. Give them the character. Don't give them 50, give them 150%.
Yeah.
Have the wardrobe of the character. Have
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the friggin' blue background. If I'm playing a serial killer and I got a purple background, it's fake. Give me a gray
Yeah.
wall that looks like an interrogation thing,
Yeah.
put me in a prison outfit, hair, makeup, the whole thing, light
Yeah.
it right, have good sound, So if I'm a
Definitely.
casting director and I'm looking at thousands of self-tapes, all of a sudden, boom, you come up and it's real. It's like, shit, I could take that footage and put it right up on the film, on the screen.
Yeah, that's what I do. I try to do it like I'm on the set. Whenever I do an audition, I want to do it like I'm on. It's like, a take on the set, just like you
That's
said.
awesome. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you have to give it everything you have.
Yeah.
What cracks me up is actors saying, oh, I'm not going to give them everything. I'll wait till they get the part. Well, guess what? You're not going to get the part.
Somebody else is going to be giving them more.
Giving 150%,
Yeah.
going in there and showing them who the character is.
Yeah, exactly.
Rocking the room.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
You ever get, like when you walked into the room and audition, you ever deal with nerves?
Sometimes, I mean, I did a couple of times. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, how do you deal with that?
A lot of breathing, or like trying to just look at it like I'm having fun. Look at it like, like it's a normal thing, like, oh, let's go and do the audition, have fun. I'm performing, try to think of it like I'm doing a performance, I'm like have an audience and I'm doing a performance, and basically, I'm performing. And after I perform, that's it. I try to forget about it. Like if I do an audition, I'm not like one of those guys that like, I do an audition and I call the manager and the agent, oh, did they call? Did they do this? I'm just like the guy, I'll go in, do my best, and then I forget about it. And if I get it, I'm happy. Because I remember when I was first starting out, I would go in and do my best and then be calling up, and then, it's like, and it gets you too crazy.
Sure.
So I try to like keep it as simple as I could, keep it easy, make it as smooth and easy as possible. No stress.
Yeah. My attitude is, listen, that casting director, they're rooting for you. They want you to be the guy, right? They have a problem. They're trying to solve the problem. They're trying to cast that role. You're the solution to the problem. And if you're more prepared, you've outworked, out-prepped, out-choiced the other actors, you're coming in and you're playing, right? Because you have an audience, and guess what? So you're not coming in a room trying to get anything. You're coming to give, to shine your light, to play, to have fun. It's a completely different energy than the guy who's coming in trying to survive the audition and hope, oh, please like me, please give me the part. It's a completely different guy, so it's a different energy. So I think the more prepared you are, you treat it like you already got the part and I'm here to shoot it.
Yeah.
You come in that prepared and you have, your choices, your hair, your makeup, your work, whatever it is, and you're giving them the performance, then you've done your job.
Yep.
It's not about getting a part or not. You've done your job. That casting director will become a fan of your work. Even if you're not right for this part, they're going to remember what you did and they'll bring you back for something else.
Or sometimes somebody else might have the part, maybe a cousin of the director, or, a family friend, or, something, you might go in and do the best. You might even be right for the part. You might even be better than the person they give the part to.
Sure.
But it's out of my control after I go in there. All I could do is go in and do the work, like you said.
So, it's like I said, it's about relationships. So have there been casting directors that, have cast you over and over again on different projects?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, this thing I just did, this thing for Major League Baseball Network, the casting lady that cast me in the show Power Book 3, they called me up and I didn't even audition. They were like, oh, you got a tape? You got like a reel or whatever? I was like, yeah, sure. Sent them a reel. Boom, they called back like, oh, you got the job.
Love
Plus
that.
other casting people too. Like a lot of casting people,
Yeah.
they call me in.
Directors.
Directors, producers. I mean, I did this thing called Return to Danger with Peter Green and a couple of actors. The girl who produced that, I did like maybe like 5 movies with her. This Christmas with the Walters, I did like 4 movies with this guy.
See?
John Gallagher, rest in peace, he died. I did like 4 or 5 movies with him. I mean, every time they would do something, they would call me up and give me a little something or give me something big or whatever, whatever was right for me. But I'm the type of guy is like, if you're doing a movie and there's nothing in it for me, it's fine. You don't have to put me in every movie you're in. Some actors are like, they want to be in, like, if they know you, they're like, oh, you're doing a movie and you didn't put me in it, and they get mad at people.
Yeah.
For me, I don't get mad.
But it's all about, it's truly all about your reputation and being a professional actor and somebody that I want to work with. I mean, listen, I know you did Black Donnellys, right? With Bobby Moresco, So I did a bunch of, I did Crash that won a bunch of Academy Awards. I did Tent and Wolf with Bobby Moresco. I did Way the Wise Guy. I played, Sonny Black, the Joe Pistone, the real Donnie Brasco. I did a play in Chicago, but all those jobs came from me being a professional, prepared actor that, he enjoyed working with it. And, and there's a role comes along, so it's really truly about those relationships. So you want to be that kind of actor that comes and delivers and is likable and people want to work with you, because that's how you become a working actor in this town. I mean, look at De Niro, four projects with De Niro, or him calling you up for Night in the City and not even auditioning, or, all of these things come because, you're a pro. And I can tell, I don't know you, we've never met before, but I can tell you're a stand-up guy, you're a good guy, and you got a good energy about you, and that's important. I mean, you don't last, like I said, you don't have 134 IMDb credits. You don't last. I mean, you've been in this business from the, I don't know, what, 90s, I don't know when you did, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were like maybe 80s, what?
89 they did that.
89. So yeah, so you don't last that many years in this business if, you're not a good guy.
Thank you.
And that you've developed, listen, you've been blessed. You've had amazing teachers along the way, on the job training, working with some amazing directors and great actors. And you learn so much just by being there on set and watching other actors film and, seeing what set etiquette is and being a professional and prepared and knowing how to hit your mark and say your line and know, I'm blocking, this is my light, my key light, knowing, the technical aspects of it that I know I can count on you.
Yeah.
I don't have to teach you anything when you show up. You're a pro, you're a professional actor.
Yeah, that's what I try to do. Yeah. Come prepared. Yeah. Thank you.
You know what I love is that you got this great attitude. You're humble, you're grateful.
I am. Hey, listen, things could be worse. Things could be, we could be dead right now or in jail or whatever, especially growing up in Brooklyn. I mean, I don't know about you, but a lot of my friends, I mean, some of them ain't around, some of them are in prison or just getting out of prison or, but some are doing good. Some are doing well.
Half my friends are dead or in jail.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And especially the guys that I was running with back in the day, those guys. I got a lot of friends that did amazing, that they got away from the streets and got away from that whole, wise guy shenanigans life, because, and that life just takes you 2 places, dead or in jail.
Exactly.
But, you were a neighborhood guy, but you didn't kind of run around in that, or did you?
No, I mean, I ran around not, doing anything or whatever, I had my share of, things I've done when I was a kid, but I've learned from my mistakes and and I put that behind me and I do things in a different way.
So if you could give advice to the younger you, right? If you could go back and talk to little Joseph and give him some advice about life, whatever, what would you say to him?
I would say, don't think you know it all. Listen to people and learn from people and don't be so thick-headed, you
Love
know?
that.
And don't think you know it all. That's the whole thing. Growing up, I thought, when I was a kid, I thought I knew it all. Like people would tell me something like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. And I'd be like, don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. But when I think back on it, I'm like, some of those things that I've did, I wish I didn't do them. But at the time I was a kid and I didn't know better. I mean, my dad passed away when I was a young kid. I really didn't have any guidance. So basically I'm not blaming that, but I mean, everything in life happens for a reason. So I guess, I had to learn from some of my mistakes, and that's what you have to do in life sometimes. My daughter actually in school one day did like an article she wrote for the school. It was about learning from other people's mistakes. And when she wrote that article for the school, I said to myself, I was like, I wish I knew that.
Wow.
Because it's so great if you could learn from watching other people make mistakes instead of you making them yourself.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
So what I know you have Gravesend coming out. What is there anything you want to, I mean, I know you do. I did not know this, but I mean, I know you've done comedy and sitcoms like Are We There Yet? And you do both sides, which is awesome, but I didn't know you do like stand up.
Yeah, I do stand up once in a while. Yep. Couple of shows a year.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
it's fun.
You got anything you want to promote? Anything going on?
Well, I'm going to be doing a show. Governors in Long Island want me to do a show, and I got to sit down with them and figure out when I'm going to do it. So I'm actually was going to head up there this weekend, maybe talk to the manager over there and set something up and get a date, maybe like 3 months from now, and do maybe like 2 shows, maybe like a 7 o'clock and a 9 o'clock, like a 2-hour show. Have a couple of comedians do it with me, have a bunch of fun. It's great, and have friends. But besides that, I got, the Gravesend. I got Power Book 3 that's on the Stars Network that's coming out soon. I'm on that as Carmine. A movie called Townhouse Confidential, where I play like a sleazy mortgage broker, like a Danny DeVito type, which was fun. And Return to Danger with Peter Green, plus a couple of short movies and things like that. Keep him busy. Plus, I wrote my own script. I'm almost done. So I'm trying to get that financed and trying to get that done.
Love that.
That's my next thing that I want to do, because actors always would ask me, Joe, how do I break into the acting business or whatever? And I would always tell them, write your own script, produce it, and make it. So then one day, one of my friends he's like, hey, Joe, you ever write a script? I was like, no. He was, then why are you telling people to do it for? I was like, you know what? I think God's been sending me a message. I got to write a script. So I bought Final Draft, and I finally got down and I wrote, like, I'm 3/4 done with this script. It's like a comedy horror, Death Wish meets Dexter type of movie. Nice. And once I'm finished with it, I'm going to try to get some money and make it.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, that's what you got to do. Listen, I'm doing the same thing. I'm 90 something pages into my life story. It's about a kid from Brooklyn that has a dream, and it's, it's a Bronx Tale, but a Brooklyn tale, it's running the streets of Brooklyn. And then, like he's got a dream and he goes after it, and makes the dream a reality. So, there's going to be parts in that for you.
Yeah, I'm down. Definitely.
We're going to be shooting it in Brooklyn. I want to shoot it right in Brooklyn. Back in Brooklyn, underneath the L, all the old. I want to shoot in the exact locations where it happened.
Oh wow, that would be fun.
It'd be fun to go back.
Yeah, everything in life happens for a reason. You meet people along the way, and when it happens, you got to make a choice of what's going to happen next, and that's what it's about. I feel like.
So, if people want to find you, what do they find you in like social media?
I'm on Instagram, official Joseph D'Onofrio. I'm on Facebook as Joseph D'Onofrio.
Awesome.
Basically, that's about it. Yeah. I'm not big on social media that much. I'm not like on there every minute and every day and liking and commenting and stuff. Sure. It takes up a lot of time. But, people send me messages. Sometimes I answer people back. If I see it and and they're nice or whatever like that, I'll answer them back and talk to people.
Well, I'm very grateful that you answered my DM because I remember I saw you something on Instagram and I was like, I got to get Joseph on the podcast. So I reached out to you and it was last minute and I sent you a DM and you said, sure. So I'm really grateful. Really seriously grateful.
I think I reached out. I think I started following you. That's how it started, right? I think I started following you and then you followed me back. And then I don't know when it happened, but I know I seen your name up there, and I looked into your page. I was like, oh wow, it's an actor. Let me follow him. You never know, you know what I mean? Because you,
Sure.
like you said, it's all about connections and networking and relationships. And look, boom, Instagram, and now we're doing an interview. Who knows? Maybe you'll be in my movie and I'll be in your movie, or we'll be working together soon. You never know what's gonna happen.
No doubt, no doubt. I look
Maybe
forward to
we'll be
that.
in Bobby Moresco's series he's making now, because I know he
Yeah.
just got booked
Yeah,
to write a
yeah, I heard
series.
about that.
So,
That sounds cool. I mean, look, you got
yeah.
George Gallo,
Oh
Midnight
yeah.
Run. I mean, he's a great writer, you got Nick, Green
Everything.
Book, I mean,
Yeah.
Bobby. I mean, that's a crew right there.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's going to be a great series with those three guys right
yeah,
there. Oh, forget about
I
it.
got to grow my hair long again. So I can,
Yeah, they'll just put a wig on you. That's all.
yeah. All right, Joe. Listen, thank you so much for being on the show. I look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man. Have a
All right.
great night and have a great thing. Thank you for interviewing me.
Yeah, you stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.